to be someone who picks up the phone and talks to people he's known for a long time in Congress, whether they're Democrats or Republicans, and he'll continue to do that. But it's a reflection of how he wants to spend his time and his recognition that he wants to spend more time out in the country and less time behind closed doors negotiating.
The White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki taking reporters' questions today in the White House briefing room. House Republican leaders held their own news conference with their assessment of the first year of the Joe Biden presidency. Congressman Kevin McCarthy of California, the minority leader, asked about working with the president.
So yesterday, the president, speaking on opposition from Republicans, asked, what are Republicans for? So your reaction to him saying Republicans are refusing to work across the aisle with this administration. Second question.
Let's back up. Where did I say we refuse to walk across the aisle? So let me walk you through what has happened in the last year. The number of letters, first when the border became a major crisis because this president changed the executive orders. A number of us went down to the border, I believe, in February. At that instance, as we were working with the Border Patrol, seeing what was happening, we uncovered that there were people on the terrorist watch list that were being arrested. We said in a press conference, the Democrats challenged us, said I was lying. We found out it was true. We sent a letter to the president, since he's never been to the border except in his 40-some year of elected office, drove by San Antonio one day. We said, let us come down and meet with you. Didn't respond. In every single issue, not just the border, the mandates, the inflation, transportation, and others, we said, let's meet and work with you, Mr. President. Because we listened to his words 1 year ago today where he said he would work with both sides, that he was going to be a president for all. No. Everything he has done is to have one-party rule, one side vote for it and deny. When he talks about Build Back Better, has he ever met with us about it? No. But please, go on with your question.
Well, that's the second part. Are there elements of Build Back Better that your caucus would support, like universal pre-K, for example?
Well, let's take an example of the president coming into office. Prior to the president in office, we were in a pandemic. Every single bill we did dealing with COVID was bipartisan. We sat in a room with leaders on the other side, administration, and we worked it all out. The minute he became president, and they controlled the House and Senate, no longer were Republicans invited into the room. And what's the first thing they passed? Purely on partisan basis, $1.9 trillion. Put that in perspective. When the financial markets crashed and we needed to fund the economy, we were talking about $800 billion. $1.9 trillion after we had passed all the other bills, with only 9% going to COVID. They wanted to do it only on party rule. We warned them then that you would create inflation. 1 year later, we were right. 1 year later, when we need tests that he was going to promise, they weren't a part of that. More Americans have died from COVID last year than the year before. And we have vaccines. This is a president that quoted in his campaign, if you reached a certain level of casualties, the person shouldn't maintain being a president. Every action he's taken has been partisan. Every outcome, we have warned him prior to taking that action what would happen.
The House Republican leader Kevin McCarthy at a news conference with other House Republicans. Fox News reports former President Trump 1 year after leaving the White House said he had no idea the country could go down so badly and so quickly, criticizing President Biden for everything from the supply chain crisis to foreign policy and more. During an exclusive interview with Fox News, Trump reflected on the first year of the Biden presidency and said the country is being absolutely destroyed. You can read more at foxnews.com. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi asked today to respond to President Biden, saying at the Wednesday news conference that he still believes he can pass what he calls big chunks of his Build Back Better social spending and climate change package. The original proposal from the president, $3.5 trillion, was cut down to $2.2 trillion, and then that was pulled from the Senate floor in December when it couldn't get support from a couple of moderate Senate Democrats whose votes were needed to pass it. Here's Speaker Pelosi.
just say, chunks is an interesting word. The president has such a commitment to the values that are contained in this legislation, the reconciliation bill. When we passed when they were considering, and then later we passed the bipartisan infrastructure bill, the president said, I want to find as much common ground as I can in a bipartisan way when it comes to infrastructure. But I cannot limit my vision for America to what the Republicans will agree to in terms of roads and bridges, etc. That's important, but it's not all. So in this legislation, if we care about preserving the planet for future generations and clean air for them to breathe today and water to drink, we need to pass the reconciliation bill. So I would hope that that would be a major part of it. So what the president calls chunks, I would hope would be a major bill going forward. It may be more limited, but it is still significant. So we talked about climate. Now let's talk about health care. So important in the legislation is that millions more people will have access to health care at a very low cost because of what is in the bill in terms of expanding the Affordable Care Act. Let's now talk about child care. Child care, and whether you're talking about the child tax credit or you're talking about child